Hello, everybody. Welcome to Knights of the Round Table. I'm Luca, and this is TJ.
Hello there, everyone.
And for tonight's edition, we are reviewing Big Fish and Begonia.
All right. So, Big Fish in Begonia follows Kun, a inhabitant of heaven, and I believe in a world based on Chinese mythology. And
It's Chun.
One day, as she is in the human world on a mission from heaven, she accidentally kills a young boy. Filled with grief, she seeks to resurrect him by bringing back his soul in the form of a fish. She names Kun. So what's your history with this movie, Luca?
It's a film that I stumbled across on YouTube.
Huh.
The cover looked really good, and I wanted to watch it. So before I did, I went on the trailer. That was really good. And then I decided to watch the movie, and it blew me away.
So you enjoyed it?
Yeah, I think it's an awesome film. The animation is amazing and has a lot of work put into it.
Mm-hmm.
And the characters are all well written.
I feel they're good, although I enjoyed it, although I have a few problems. But I guess we should start on the animation. So what exactly did you like about the animation?
I like how it has a 2D 2.5D look to it. Like it's not entirely flat. The dolphins look almost real, and the backgrounds really like hold the scenes together.
2.5D. Are you referring to? And by that you mean like how they use CGI in the picture?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what are you referring to? Like what are you referring to with that?
Like the dolphins floating in the air.
I think. Okay. Yeah. I quite enjoyed the animation as well. It's very Ghibli inspired, which I found to be a little annoying. I wish they did have a little bit more. Not that there's anything wrong with getting inspiration from Ghibli or using a lot of their tropes and styles, but I do think if they did a little more original, if they had a little bit more work into differentiating, it would make the work stronger. But still, it works for the most part. And and also there's a lot of good work put into it. There's a lot of this. Yeah, the character animation is, although a little choppy in parts, is very well handled with a lot of good secondary movements. Yeah, the facial expressions work fine, but as you said, the backgrounds and environments are very well done. They're very fantastical, very detailed, and they also manage to convey a huge scale, which is something that helps differentiate them a little bit from Ghibli. There is a massive scale to this movie. I almost wish I saw it in a theater.
What do you think? Chun is a good protagonist of the film?
I feel she's a pretty good protagonist. Yourself?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
She has the traits of an anti-hero. She doesn't listen to her parents. She acts like without them thinking, and she doesn't like stand down for anyone.
I wouldn't call her an anti-hero. She's definitely flawed, but she is definitely a pretty stable heroine, even when she does make mistakes.
I mean,
she isn't.
like pretty much everything bad that happens is her fault.
That doesn't. Yeah, but she doesn't want to make. That isn't her intention, though. She isn't. Yeah, she really isn't a villain in anyone's story. She's maybe an antagonist. maybe yeah, she isn't. I wouldn't call. I don't think it's right to really call her an anti-hero, but I quite enjoyed, but I quite enjoyed her as well. As did I mention why I? Did I mention why?
I mean, yeah, she is a heroine figure. She protects Kun from the other people in her like realm, and she keeps her friend Ku safe.
Yes, she also risks her life to bring back Coon, as you said, like she is putting her life on the line. So I wouldn't, yeah, she really isn't she really isn't that much of a villain in any sense. I don't really quite enjoy her as an anti-hero. Don't really think it works as an anti-hero. But yeah, I found her to be fun. I quite Coon is cute. I'm not super fond of his. I'm a little creeped. I am creeped out by his eyes and human teeth, though. They also have that design element for. Oh yeah, for a little context. Chun turns into a dolphin at one point. I'm not going to spoil why. And they also, and for basically all the times when they are human souls and dolphins or spirit souls, I guess. They do have these anime eyes and teeth, which didn't really work for me. I get why they did it. It's to show they're different from other animals and to give them a little more expression. But it did feel a little uncanny to me. I didn't really like that aspect of the design.
Hmm. I like to give more thoughts on the characters.
Go on.
So, Ku is a fun and friendly guy. I like how
Mm-hmm.
he tries to get closer to Chun, but keeps getting rejected. I think he plays a major part in the film by helping Chun get to Earth,
Mm-hmm.
protecting her from the others in their realm. And then
Yeah.
the Rat Woman. I think she is a mix of good and bad. She helps Chun and Q get their pet dolphin back, but also screws them over a little. Like she
She
tells the village where they're hiding the dolphin in order for her to become human and live on Earth.
yeah, she's kind of a she's a pretty fun character. Yeah, hmm, she is I would say she is a villain, maybe not the antagonist of the story, but she definitely is a villain, and I would agree it is kind of interesting to see her like it is kind of interesting to have a person who although who doesn't have malice towards the main characters, but is she doesn't want to see them get killed or anything like that. Although she also just doesn't particularly care for them. She just is mainly looking after her own self-interest. She's fun. Although I would uh,
Yeah,
same one.
and she does tease them to begin with.
Yeah, the same thing. Yeah, same thing with Hantun. Is it, we've mentioned this before. Hantun is the name of the grandfather, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hantun is a very nice character as well. I do wish we had a little bit more screen time with him. Maybe get him to know a little bit better. But yeah. But I, but he has a nice tenderness to him. He's a pretty good grandpa character. Nothing to complain about with that. Yourself?
Yeah, Hotu is a good character. He's like this wholesome figure to the realm, and he gives very wise advice to Chun whenever she's in trouble, and he never rats her out to her parents.
Yeah, that said, however, on characters, there is a lot of them. There's just, yeah, as this movie is very big and epic in scale. Like it is, yeah, it is very, which I think we can, when we talk about the world, I'd like to expand on that a little bit more and how I feel. But in perspective of the characters, it does feel it does feel very busy at times. That yeah, with all of these weird and hmm, like I shouldn't say weird. All these bizarre alien characters with all these unique designs. It does designs. It's interesting for sure, but it just does feel. But as mentioned, it just feels overwhelming.
I mean, I'd say it's overwhelming, but to a smaller degree because most of the characters are background ones. They don't have any major story arcs or anything.
True, but there's still a lot of attention brought to them
Like
through
they
their
help build the story.
design. Yeah, agree, agreed. But there are, but it still does feel very busy at times, and also just keeping track of, their powers and trying to think what their roles are. Not a huge problem. I kind of agree with you. They are background characters, but that did annoy me a little. But I shouldn't say annoy me. That is an aspect I didn't care for entirely. What's your thoughts on the world of this movie?
Uh, I think the world is well made, very detailed, and I think in some ways they set the tone of each scene. I like when Shun gets into contact with the Soul Keeper.
Mm,
He lives in a very he lives in a very a weird part of the realm, and I just like how the Earth looks. Like has a beautiful ocean, like a very island like town. It
and
gives
this
me beach vibes.
and this is the Earth. This isn't heaven. You're talking about,
I'm
correct?
talking about both places, but Earth is the one that feels like a beach.
Okay. Yeah, I did. It's as mentioned. It is the world is very pretty, very intriguing in its fantasy. But I think, and this requires my general thoughts. My general thoughts of this world of the movie, if I were to put it into one sentence, it's a very beautiful, very well executed movie. However, the the world, the characters within it, and the conflicts are very alienating and very, yeah, and at times very overwhelming for yeah for me. In the case of the in the case of the world in general, it is a very well for one, it is very steeped in its own lore. I'm not sure it's very yeah. There's and also it isn't there really is no real human let me start over. It's very steeped in its own lore, and there really is no connection, no real solid connection within them. Chun is a very yeah, Shun is a very likable character but her conflict is very hard to relate to, and by her conflict I don't mean like her emotional drive. That makes sense. She wants to change the past, but like raising a fish, magical fish, to bring somebody back to life is hard to really get invested in, especially if there's not especially when the rest of the world is so fantastical. It feels very yeah. Overall it's very intriguing, but I feel like the world, and by extension the whole film, it's hard. I had a hard time really getting really connected to it and really invested in it, in spite of it looking so in spite of all the work that went into making it look so good, and how it is functioning. And I'm saying that my biggest problems are that that's a very alienating world and story. That's not to say that it can't work in other media. Some of my favorite movies and books are very do that do exactly that. but it's hard to pull off, and to me, it really didn't work here, especially with since the movie has such an emotional is trying to have such an emotional core.
Any scenes that you really like?
Any scenes I really like. I like a lot of set pieces within them. I really trying to put into words. I I like the Soul Keeper's house. I enjoy the scene when there's a scene where Chun and Kun are in ice. That I thought that was kind of fun, especially with the side characters within them. I enjoy yeah, and I enjoyed yeah, and I enjoy what else here. I yeah, I quite enjoyed seeing what this world was like at points. I like the swamp. There's a and I like and especially I especially like the environments near the end. There's a lot of elements I like. There's a lot of elements I like in this world. It's just yeah, it just there is really no way for me to anchor myself in it. And this all could just be my mood. Maybe a different time I would be more invested.
So should we move on to recommendations?
Um, yeah. Just one, just one real quick thing. One real quick thing about the movie. It's a very. I found it a little. This is one last note about just. This is one last note about the world. I found it to be a little alienating at times. Not alienating. Let me start. I found the magic to be confusing at times. I do appreciate how much this world is going into its lore, but it is confusing. It's hard to determine what these characters can do and what's at stake, especially when it comes to mortality. What is like I found it hard to really get what these characters really perceive as what death means to these people, because there's a lot of reincarnation and magic surrounding that.
Here, do you have a question?
Yeah. As for recommendations, any other notes from you?
Well, yeah, I agree. It's a little hard to follow up with the magic, but after doing research, it gets easier.
But that's the thing. You need to do research. There's exceptions that typically you don't want to do research on the movie. And also part of my confusion is what could be cultural. I will say there's a lot of this movie's world is highly inspired by Chinese mythology and spirituality, and I think which I'm assuming a good knowledge of makes it a little easier to follow. But even then, even if I did have a good grasp of what this world did and what these characters represent and can do, I feel that it wouldn't really help. It really wouldn't mend the problem I have, where it is so epic and alienating.
Yeah, but like even if you did know how, even if you did know about all these Chinese myths, it still really wouldn't make it like any easier for you to interpret how the magic works in the movie. Like so much is going on.
It would, but it would still be hard. But it still would be hard to connect to. As for at least I think so. Maybe with a rewatch, I could find something to enjoy with this movie. But as it is, I would give it a decent recommendation. There's a lot of work put into this movie. It's very beautiful and atmospheric at points. So if you want something to put on something that is nice to watch and very easy to get lost into, I say this could be a fun time. It's very. I also think that if you like animation, international animation and anime, you might get a lot. You might get something out of this. It might be a little. It might be a little tricky to follow, as I know I'm repeating myself, but it's very steeped in its own mythology. The world is very steeped in its own mythology and lore. So if that doesn't sound appealing to you guys, that might not fair. This might not be the movie for you. But I still think that I still will stand by it as a good time. I'd probably give it between a 6 and a 7. And if yourself?
Well, I have a much different rating than you, but before I get to the rating, I'm gonna start with my recommendations. So, I'd recommend it to people who are into foreign animations. If you're interested in Studio Ghibli films or any Japanese animes, I would try coming to this film made in China because it has similar animation. And if you just want to see something extraordinary, try watching this film. And I'd rate this film a 9.9 out of 10. The only reason I don't give it a 10 is because of the magic being hard to follow up with.
Yeah. Oh, alrighty then. Alrighty then. Now it's my turn to chew the poison. Next week, I want to review Society.
Alright, sounds interesting.
Yeah. Thank you for your time, Luca, and I'll see you in a week.
Thank you for joining me.